Hello, Mr. Horecan. It's B here from Tourism Q&A. I do have a caller on the line for you. She is Sophia Humez, a tourism student from the Ulster University Business School, Belfast, the United Kingdom. She has a question for you. Should I put her through?
Yes, B. Tell me.
Good day, Mr Horecan. I'm Sophia Humez, a student here at Ulster University Business School in Belfast, United Kingdom, and I've got a question. I'm a bit confused about tourism journeys. When does a journey count as tourism and when does it not? I hear a lot of different explanations out there. Is it only when someone travels far or goes on holiday? What really qualifies as tourism?
Interesting question. When does a journey truly count as tourism? I like that. Where do I start with this? Let me say, thank you for reaching out with this excellent question, Sophia. It is completely understandable why there might be confusion around this topic for you. You see, the term tourism is often used very loosely in our everyday conversations, but in academia, and especially for statistic and policy purposes, it does carry a much more precise and technical meaning. So let's take a moment here to clear things up and paint a clearer picture of when a journey truly counts as tourism, especially for upcoming industry professionals like yourself. You see, when it comes to understanding such lingos like tourism, the right place to start would be with the definitions. And when it comes to defining tourism, you bet you want to start with the authorities. You want to start with the powers that be. You want to start with the movers and the shakers of the tourism industry. And the most globally accepted and academically respected definition of tourism does come from the United Nations World Tourism Organization, the UNWTO, now known simply as the UN Tourism. And its definition serves as a standard across countries. It serves as a standard for consistent data gathering, industry benchmarking, and policy making. So how does the UN Tourism define tourism? See, according to the UN Tourism is a social, cultural, and economic phenomenon which entails the movement of people to countries or places outside of their usual environment for personal, business, or professional purposes. Now, these people are called visitors, which may either be tourists or excursionists, residents or non-residents. And tourism has to do with their activities, some of which involves tourism expenditures. Now, did you get that? That's how exactly the UN Tourism defines tourism. It might be a bit confusing, and that's why I understood with you when you said it's a bit confusing. Therefore, let me take the definition once again, and hopefully I'm going to clear up the air. According to the UN Tourism is a social, cultural, and economic phenomenon which entails the movement of people to countries or places outside their usual environment for personal, business, or professional purposes. And the definition goes further to say that these people are called visitors, which may be either tourists or excursionists, residents or non-residents. And tourism has to do with their activities, some of which will include tourism expenditures. Does that make sense? Now, let me break it down for you. In order to fully understand this, we need to unpack some of the terms and lingos used in this definition. Key phrases like visitors, movements, usual environment, purpose, and activities. They all need to be broken down to their simplest form. But first, let's lay out the 4 fundamental criteria a movement must meet before it can officially be classified as tourism. Now, a journey can only count as tourism if 1. It is a voluntary movement. 2. It is a movement to a place outside of one's usual environment. 3. It involves temporary stay, a short stay. 4. It is not for the purpose of being employed. It's not for the purpose of being employed by a resident entity in the destination in question. Now, that being said, who is a visitor? An important question. If you recall from the UN tourism definition, the term visitor was used. Let me quote, "These people are called visitors, which may either be tourists or excursionists, resident or non-resident visitors." So who exactly is a visitor? Now, understanding who a visitor is will help us in understanding when a movement becomes a tourism visit. Very important. You see, in tourism, a visitor is anyone who travels outside their usual environment for less than 1 year. Not for permanent work, not for relocation. Visitors are classified into 2 categories: tourists and excursionist visitors. Now, a visitor who stays overnight for at least 24 hours and up to 12 months is regarded as a tourist visitor. However, a visitor who does not stay overnight is regarded as an excursionist or same-day visitor. Example of an excursionist will include a cruise passenger stopping over for a few hours in a destination, uses local facilities, local activities. It will include day trippers visiting attractions, visiting marketplaces or festivals, and returning the same day. Remember, returning the same day. Now, even though excursionists don't spend the night, they still engage in tourism activities and uses tourism services. So they are included in tourism statistics as visitors, but they are not classified as tourists. Now, having understood who a visitor is, let's now dive into the 4 core criteria one by one. Number 1, voluntary movement. You see, tourism is inherently a voluntary activity. It is something done out of free will. If the movement is involuntary, it doesn't count as tourism. You see, people move for many reasons, which falls under 2 categories: voluntary and involuntary. Now, movements made out of free will be regarded as voluntary movements, chosen freely. And this kind of movement is usually purpose-driven. However, involuntary movements, on the other hand, are forced movements, usually made under circumstances beyond one's control. Now, voluntary movements happens when people travel for leisure, travel for businesses, travel for religious purposes, education, or even health travels. Tourism is a perfect example of a voluntary movement. The visitor chooses when to go, where to go, and when to return. In contrast, involuntary movements are driven by survival, not by choice. You see, here, movements are out of deterministic purposes, circumstances beyond one's control, and will include refugees fleeing war or persecutions. It will include victims of natural disasters or trafficking. It will include people displaced by famine or by conflicts. These are not tourists. Their movements are acts of necessities, not exploration. Now, criteria number 2. Now, the next fundamental criteria a movement must have to qualify as tourism is that of what? that the movement must take place outside of one's usual environment. So what is one's usual environment? Places where we live, places where we work, places where we study, places where we visit frequently as part of our daily or weekly routine will be classified as our usual environment. Now, the take home here is that the movement is not about distance, it's about breaking routine. Now, let me give you a good example. If you live in Belfast and commute daily to Lisbon for work, that movement is not tourism. But if you live in Belfast and decide to travel to Lisbon for over a weekend, for example, book a hotel, dine locally, and explore historic sites, that trip will count as tourism. The third criterion. Now let's talk about the third criterion. The third criterion is that of temporary stay. For a movement to count as tourism, it must involve temporary stay, a very short stay. The movement must not exceed 1 year. As a matter of fact, according to the UN Tourism, a tourist stays for 24 hours to 12 months. An excursionist stays for less than 24 hours. Anyone staying more than 12 months or relocating is no more regarded as a tourist. They are then classified as migrants or residents. The key take home here is that of duration. See, duration does matter when it comes to tourism visits. Now, the last and final criterion would be that of the purpose. The purpose must not be to be gainfully employed. So for a movement to count as tourism, it must not be for the purpose of getting employment. Now, this can be a bit confusing. The argument will always be, what about the business travelers? They also earn money during their trips, and yet they are classified as tourism. Why are they considered as tourists? The key here is the income source. Where does the income come from? A good example would be a consultant from Belfast visiting London for a client's meeting. They are regarded to be on a business trip. They are paid from the sources back home. But the construction worker from, say, Poland coming to Belfast for a 3-month contract is no more a tourist. They are temporary migrant workers. So the key take home here will be, who pays who? Where is your employer based? Now, let me summarize all this for you, Sophia. If someone leaves their usual environment, travels voluntarily, stays temporarily not more than 1 year, and does not work for a resident employer at the destination in question, then their movement counts as tourism. If they stay overnight, they are called tourists. If they travel and return the same day, they are called excursionists or same-day visitors. They are visitors, but they are not regarded as tourists. If they move involuntarily, stay over a year, or get local employment, they are not considered as tourist visitors anymore. Understood? Now, you may want to know, why are all these so important for tourism? Why does this matter for tourism? Understanding this definition is essential for every tourism and hospitality professionals like yourself. It helps us classify and segment visitors accurately, design appropriate services and destinations experiences for our clients. It is also very important to gather meaningful data and helps us make better informed policies. Now, I hope I've been able to answer your question or at least clear up the confusion a bit for you. Well done for asking the right questions, Sophia. And keep up the great thinking. Next question, please. Remember, it's Tourism Q&A with Mr. Horecan. And I am Mr. Horecan.